Hi guys, how are you? Today we'll talk about GMAT structure. In the first part of this video, I will talk about GMAT structure and then I'll explain our course structure as well. So normally GMAT consists of 4 sections. First is analytical writing assessment, integrated reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and verbal reasoning. You probably know that GMAT is scaled from 200 to 800. So the minimum score is 200 and the maximum score is 800. And this total score is made up from quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning. Okay? Analytical writing assessment can be skipped by you, but only if your universities require it. You can take this exam as well, this part of the exam as well. Integrated reasoning is not very essential, but you need to enter this part. I will explain the question types in this section, don't worry. It doesn't affect your total score. Your total score consists of only quantitative and verbal reasoning, okay? This is the total structure of your exam. It takes around 3.5 hours to complete it. So, analytical reasoning takes 30 minutes and there is just one question. You analyze the argument and it is scored from 0 to 6. Okay, so the maximum point is 6 and the perfect score is 5. 5, 5.5, and 6. Okay, integrated reasoning takes 30 minutes and there are 12 questions. Like they assess some information, data, like graphic interpretation, true false not given questions, true false questions, like source questions and so on. And the score range is from 1 to 8. Of course, the score of 5 and plus is good. But still, it is not very important. For many universities, total score is the main factor. Quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning, they are assessed individually and they make up the total score for you. So they have this the score range from 6 to 51. It is like the point system. The maximum point is 51 and the closer you are to 51, the better is your score. Ideally, you need to take 49, 50, 48, 49, 50 from quant, and from verbal, everything over 40, 41, 42 is perfect. Okay, and these scaled scores, and there is also the percentile. Percentile is when you write better than others. For example, if you get 80th percentile in quantitative reasoning, it means that you wrote this test better than 80% of people, and it is normally shown in your score report. So for example, it's written like this: your scale score is 48 and your percentile is 86. 86 is a very good percentile. Okay, so for quantitative you have 62 minutes and 31 questions. So 2 minutes for one question. It's perfect. For verbal you have less time. You have 65 minutes and 36 questions. Okay. Quantitative section consists of data sufficiency and problem solving questions. Verbal consists of reading passages with questions, critical reasoning, assessing arguments, and sentence correction, assessing sentences based on grammar, diction, logical construction, and so on. Okay, now let's turn to each section one by one. Okay, you can see quantitative reasoning section. Quantitative reasoning section consists of problem solving and data sufficiency. Problem solving questions are very typical ones. You probably know them from your exams, entrance exams, basic multiple choice questions where you have the question and 5 options and there's only one correct option. Okay, please remember that half of your questions are problem solving ones. Out of 31, you'll have around 15 or 16 questions that are problem solving. For data sufficiency, you will have some information, okay, and there will be 2 statements given to answer to the question. For example, there is information about a real estate agent that received a commission of 6% of the selling price of a certain house, and you are asked to find the selling price of this house. And in order to answer this question, there are given two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. And you need to answer which of the statement is enough in order to answer this question, okay? And basically the answer A said that statement 1 is sufficient, statement 2 is not sufficient, statement B says the vice versa, statement 2 is sufficient, and statement 1 is not sufficient. C says both statements together are sufficient and neither of them alone is sufficient, okay? So they are both sufficient, so you need to take both of these into account in order to answer this question. This says that each of these statements separately is sufficient, and E says that neither 1 nor 2 and none of them together or each of them together are sufficient, okay? So there is so it means that you need extra information, and even these two together are not enough. Okay, so be careful, and it is better for you to memorize them. You will have them on the exam, but just for you to choose fast, it will be great if you memorize these options. Okay, well, this is about quant. For verbal, you will have 3 question types. This will be a reading comprehension questions. Well, you'll have the passage on your left and questions on your right. For example, you'll have a passage and 3 questions for it, and you'll answer questions one by one. Critical reasoning is the argument given to you, and you will be required to evaluate it. So you'll be basically given the argument, and you will assess the argument, whether how to strengthen it, how to weaken it. So there will be different question types for critical. So the case is to assess the argument and answer the question given to you. And sentence correction checks your language proficiency, how well you understand sentences, and trying to find your grammatical point, your grammatical knowledge, and checking whether you understand the structure of the sentences and the logical construction. Well, this is the reading comprehension part. You see the question, the passage, and you see the question. Question 1, question 2, question 3. Okay, here you can see it below the passage, but normally during the exam you will see it right on the right side of the passage. Okay, so there normally for one passage you will have around 3 to 4 questions, and in one verbal exam you'll have around 3 or 4 passages. Normally you have 4 passages, and reading takes around 12 to 15 questions of your exam. Critical reasoning, you see here, you see the argument, okay, and you have the question. For example, which of them best support the following statement? Okay, you need to know the background information. You need to know the conclusion of this argument, if there is any, and answer this question. Okay, that's easy. And you have 5 options, out of which you decide. By the way, in verbal you have only one question type. They are multiple choice questions, 5 options, and you choose only one correct answer. And critical reasoning questions are questions that give you some sentences and with the underlined part, and you need to assess it whether it's correct or not. Okay, so you can see this part closed, associated with, or associated with, depending on the pronunciation type. Well, and you need to choose whether this one is correct. A gives the original version, and B, C, D, E give you the alternative versions. Okay. Well, that's what is said about verbal. Integrated reasoning, by the way, again, quantitative and verbal both give you the score, the total score, like out of 800. Okay. Integrated reasoning and writing won't affect your score. They are given as separate points. Integrated reasoning is given immediately at the end of the exam, in the form of the official result, unofficial result. Well, after the exam you see your unofficial results for verbal, quantitative, and integrated reasoning. But for analytical writing, you get the score after 10 days with your official report that is given to you within 10 to 15 days after the exam. and this report can be sent to universities. Not all, of course, but for some universities. Okay. Integrated reasoning consists of different questions like multi-source reasoning, table analysis, graphics interpretation, two-part analysis, and there are different charts, there are some statistical tables and so on, or some statements, a piece of a memo or a letter that you need to analyze and answer, let's say, in the form of multiple choice questions or true false case statements. Well, and as it's not a very essential section and many universities ignore it, but you just need to enter this section. You cannot skip it. You enter and you can skip you can actually ignore this section and just enter it and wait to end. But analytical writing assessment, you can skip it if you don't need it. But many MBA programs and many European universities, especially in the Netherlands, for example, or top PhD programs, require that you provide them the analytical writing score. And if you tend to apply to serious programs, it's important that you provide, let's say, the application, your application with the GMAT AWA score. Okay, there is just one writing. You see this statement. It's similar to your critical reasoning topic. So it gives you some situation, some argument, and you analyze the relevance of the argument. You analyze how logically constructed your argument is. Is it what strengthens, what weakens the argument? What can be the possible points that we can question, and so on. So the structure depends on you. That's all for the GMAT exam. Remember one important point for verbal and quantitative. You have 31 questions and 36 questions, and you cannot see the next question until you answer this the following question that appears on your screen correctly or incorrectly, of course. So you need to choose the answer in order to proceed. So, for example, if you take the first one correctly, you go to the second one. And remember, GMAT is based on the algorithm that the easier questions answered correctly bring you to more difficult questions. So if you start with easy questions, you normally start with easy questions. If you answer them correctly, questions become harder and harder and harder. But if you answer easy questions incorrectly, the next question comes even easier and easier. And your algorithm is based on the number of questions that you answered correctly, and especially in the beginning and the middle part, because they set the range for you. Okay, but it doesn't mean that you need to ignore the end. No, but it's important to answer as many questions correctly as possible. Okay, especially because the next question, the next question that comes, let's say, shows your performance. Because if you answer it the previous question correctly, the harder question comes, but it means that your score rises. Sorry. And if you vice versa answer it incorrectly, your score decreases and the easier question comes. Okay, so, and this is like a zigzag, and finally you reach the end of the test, and the scale score is calculated based on the medium level of questions that you had. If from the beginning you answered everything correctly and your questions were mostly medium and hard because you answered them easy questions correctly, it is good and your score is high. If you answer the questions incorrectly from the very beginning and many questions are incorrect, your score will go down and your scale score and percentiles will, of course, lower. For our structure, let me show it to you. Our structure consists of generally 13 weeks of preparation. For intensive, it is 6 to 7 weeks. But if, of course, you can dedicate much more time for your preparation and studies, you can take an intensive course. But normally, taking a normal course is better. We have a general class. In the general class, we form strategies for quantitative and verbal sections, and more importantly, we analyze exam questions. I get them from different forums. I get them from students that, thanks to thanks to their drawing, or thanks to their, let's say, like hints and cues, I can find some questions, and it is very useful for me to work with you based on these questions. You have the reading class, on which we focus on reading and critical reasoning topics, and every week we take one topic for reading, one topic for critical reasoning. We get the sentence correction class. This class is for sentence correction tasks and sentence correction topics. By the way, I haven't mentioned, around 12 to 15 questions are reading questions, around 12 questions are sentence correction questions, 10 to 12, and approximately 10 questions are critical reasoning questions. For you to know this, okay, guys? So the 55% of questions is around for reading, not 55, sorry, 45. Around 30% of questions, 35% questions are sentence correction questions, and critical reasoning questions are around 20 to 25%. Okay, I mean the verbal part. And we have the math class where we focus on the quantitative section. If you want to take writing classes, you just inform me, and once a month we have writing classes. There is just a one wrap-up class, and you can join it, and then you can write several writing essays. And normal our students, if they take the writing section, they get 5, 5.5, or 6. GMAT can be taken at home if you have stable internet connection. And in test centers, there is only one test center in Azerbaijan right now for 2022 July. It's Azerbaijan University of Languages, and you can register here by entering the website. Let me write it to you. mba.com/GMAT. Okay, this is the website that you need to enter to get information about GMAT and register here to find the approximate exam dates. Remember that test center dates aren't that many, like around 5 or 6 a month, no more than that. And especially for September, October, they are fully booked starting from July and August. So if you plan to take them in October, for example, it would be great if you take them, if you register at least in the beginning of August. That's it for GMAT, and I hope that I've answered and covered all questions that you need to know. Thank you.